There is a kind of exhaustion that arrives after success, and that is the part nobody posts. We love comeback stories, victory speeches, big moments, answered prayers, career wins, spiritual highs, but what happens the day after? That part rarely trends, because the day after success can feel strangely empty. You finally get what you wanted, you finally prove yourself, you finally survive the thing, and instead of feeling unstoppable, you feel tired in your bones. That was Elijah, and honestly, that has been a lot of us. Let us set the scene. Elijah just had the spiritual equivalent of breaking the internet. Mount Carmel, public showdown, 450 prophets of Baal, 1 prophet of God, no pressure. He builds an altar, soaks it with water 3 times, prays, and fire falls from heaven. Not metaphorical fire. Actual fire. It consumes the offering, the wood, the stones, the soil, and the water in the trench, which is honestly a flex so outrageous it sounds fictional. The people fall face down. National revival energy? Then Elijah prays for rain after years of drought, and it rains. Then he outruns a king's chariot for miles, which, if we are being honest, is elite athlete behavior. So, by every visible measure, Elijah is at the top. Career-defining moment, massive public win, proof of calling, evidence of power. Then the next day happens. Queen Jezebel sends him one threat, one message, and suddenly the same man who called down fire is running for his life. Pause there, because that contrast matters. Yesterday, supernatural confidence. Today, emotional collapse. If that does not sound like modern life, I do not know what does. You crush the presentation, land the deal, ace the exams, launch the project, host the event, carry everyone, and then one email, one comment, one unexpected setback hits, and you are spiraling. Not because you are weak, but because your nervous system has limits. That is the part we forget. High performance is expensive, and after intense output comes a crash if recovery is ignored. Neuroscience calls this allostatic load, the cumulative wear and tear on the body when stress systems stay activated too long. Translation: if you keep operating in survival mode, eventually your system sends the bill. Elijah's body and mind had been running at maximum capacity. Spiritual pressure, emotional strain, physical exertion, public scrutiny, and then the crash came, not during the battle, after it. That timing is important because breakdowns often happen when the crisis ends, when your body finally realizes it is allowed to feel what it postponed. So Elijah runs into the wilderness, sits under a broom tree and says, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life." 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 4. That is not drama. That is depletion talking. And what happens next is one of the most misunderstood moments in Scripture. Because if most people wrote this story, God would rebuke him. Where is your faith? Did you forget the fire? Stand up and be strong. But God does none of that. Instead, an angel touches him gently and says, "Get up and eat." That is it. No lecture, no correction, no spiritual guilt trip, just food. That detail is everything because it reveals how God responds to human burnout, not with shame, with care. 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 6 says, "He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and then lay down again." Read that carefully. God's first intervention was not revelation, it was regulation. He addressed Elijah's body before addressing his beliefs, because sometimes your theology is not broken. You are just exhausted, and exhausted people often mistake depletion for spiritual failure, but God knew the difference. So he fed him and let him sleep. Then the angel came back. Again, another touch, another meal. Because one sandwich was not enough, and that is deeply practical. Healing is rarely one moment. It is repeated care, repeated nourishment, repeated permission to recover. Then the angel says, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 7. Notice the wording. Not "you are too weak," not "you failed." The journey is too much for you. That means the issue was not Elijah's worth. It was his current capacity. And capacity is not fixed. It can be restored. That is a crucial distinction, because when life overwhelms you, it does not mean you are incapable. It may simply mean your current reserves are insufficient for the road ahead. That is not a character flaw. That is a human condition. Now here's the flex in this whole story. God did not remove Elijah from purpose. He restored him for it. There is a difference. Some people think rest means quitting, but biblical rest is preparation. The meal was not comfort food, it was fuel, because there was still a mountain ahead. Elijah travels 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God, and there God reveals himself, but not how expected. There is wind, violent enough to break rocks, but God is not in the wind. Then an earthquake, but God is not in the earthquake. Then fire, but God is not in the fire. And after the fire, a gentle whisper. 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 12 says, "And after the fire came a gentle whisper." In Hebrew, this phrase carries the sense of thin silence, delicate stillness, almost a sound you can miss if you are addicted to noise. And that matters, because Elijah had just come from dramatic miracles, fire from heaven, national spectacle, public power, yet God meets him in quiet. Why? Because exhausted people do not need more intensity, they need gentleness. That is the genius of divine care. God meets you according to your need, not according to your expectation. Then God asks, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 9. Not because God lacks information, but because naming your pain matters. Elijah pours it out, says he feels alone, abandoned, like he is the only faithful one left. And here is where cave seasons distort perception. Your feelings are real, but your conclusions are often inaccurate. Elijah felt isolated. That was true. But when he concluded he was alone, that was false. God responds, "Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal." 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 18, 7,000. Meaning while Elijah was convinced he was the last one standing, there were thousands being faithful in hidden places. That is the pastoral gift of this passage. Your loneliness is valid. Your assumption that nobody else understands is not always accurate. The cave magnifies isolation. It makes you think your struggle is singular, but there are always others carrying similar burdens quietly, and often they are closer than you think. Now let us bring this into modern life. Take Chris, young lawyer, ambitious, sharp, built his career from nothing. He lands a huge promotion, celebrates, looks successful. Then 2 weeks later, he is emotionally numb, snapping at people, can't focus, wants to disappear. Everyone assumes he should be grateful, but his body is billing him for years of pressure. That is Elijah energy, the mountaintop moment followed by the cave. And the solution was not push harder, it was restoration, therapy, sleep, real meals, boundaries, reduced stimulation, meaningful connection. In other words, angel-level care. Because burnout is not fixed by motivational quotes. It is addressed by meeting actual needs. And then God gives Elijah something unexpected. A new assignment, anoint kings, mentor Elisha, return to purpose. Notice that. God does not say, stay in the cave forever. Rest was necessary, but it was not permanent residence. Because healing includes re-entry. At some point, you must return to meaningful work. Not because productivity defines you, but because purpose restores identity. The assignment was not burden. It was reorientation. It reminded Elijah who he was beyond his exhaustion. That matters for anyone in a cave season. Rest is essential, but so is purpose, because endless withdrawal can become avoidance, and avoidance can disguise itself as healing. Eventually, you have to step back onto the road, fed, clearer, grounded. Not because the journey is easy, but because now you have what it requires. So if you are in a cave season right now, hear this. Your cave is not proof that you failed. It is proof that you are human. God is not disappointed in your exhaustion, and sometimes his most spiritual response will look suspiciously ordinary. He is attentive to it. A meal, a nap, a whisper, a reminder that you are not alone. Because before the next assignment, there is bread on hot stones and water by your head, and that too is holy. If something in this story stayed with you, and if it's still sitting somewhere in your chest, that's not an accident. That's the thing we don't scroll past. Hit like, not as a reflex, but as a marker, because somewhere out there, a witness is still looking for proof that their story isn't over. And this might be how they find it. Pass it to that friend, the one whose testimony is still being written, the one who hasn't heard the scripture told this way before. And subscribe to Bible Rebooted. We don't come here to perform. We come here to tell the truth and to hand you the evidence that you were never as far gone as it felt. Every story is evidence. It's your boy Kairos Ade signing out. Like, subscribe and stream the music.
In my midnight hour, the sun deserves favor, it's overcoming power. Ooh.